This is my applique sunflower table runner, and I did the applique on my embroidery machine, and my friend Jackie quilted this together. So I'm going to show you how to do applique by doing the squares that she wants to make one of these for her. Okay, here we are stitching out the outline of the block. Now on my machine it looks like these are all different colors, but I sew it all with the same color I want the end product sewed in, just in case something shows through. This way it won't show. So right now it's just going to sew out the square block. So I could sew that and then just lay the base fabric on there, and then I wouldn't waste any fabric. And you would do that by hooping stickies and just sewing right on it, or actually any other kind of stabilizer. And then you could just stick a 4x4 square, which is what this one is, on top of that spot. And I'll probably do the rest of them that way, but I wanted to have the nice dark background so that you could see in the video better what we're doing here. Okay, now the machine is going to stitch out the outline of the flower petals, which is the first applique part. If this was going to be two different colors, I would stop it after the first petal stitched out and put that one on and then do the second one, but these two are going to be the same. Now I've removed the hoop from the machine. Of course, you never remove the fabric from the hoop till you're all done, but you can slip the hoop off. So I laid it here so you can see the outline of my flower petals, and now I'm going to cut some of the contrasting fabric a little bit bigger than that, and I'm going to put some spray adhesive on it and cover those outlines and stitch around it again, and then trim the fabric. So I'll show you how to do that. As you can see here, I've cut a piece that's really about 4x4 so that I know it will cover all these lines. And I'm going to put some spray adhesive on and just stick this on like this. If you wanted to be thriftier, you could like print out a template and trace around them a little bit better, but I bought a bunch of extra fabric and it was on clearance and it was pretty cheap. So I'm going to stick this down like this, replace it in the machine, stitch out the outline again, and then I'll trim it. Okay, here's the applique fabric stuck on the base, and the machine is just outlining the petals now so that I'll have a nice trim line. A little hard to see on there because I did use the same color thread, but I'll get a close-up here in a minute. Okay, this is pretty easy for me to see, but it's not coming up so great on the camera. For example, that's the center line, so I'm actually not going to cut that, but these could be two different petals. But here's the other line. It goes right around like this, and I'm going to trim that to about 1/16. I don't want to cut it too close to the edge of the thread because it will unravel. Okay, this is a little tricky because I can't find my tripod, and I'm going to try to hold this up in front of the camera and show you how I trim it. I like these duck-billed scissors, but you can use any small sharp scissors. And see how I just cut close, but not right at the thread. I've cut a lot of them too close, and that's not good. Sometimes, depending on how the design is, the satin stitch might not catch the edge of it, so you kind of got to get to know your designers too. But you can see right here how I just left a little edge. The thread's over here, and I have just a little edge left right there, and I'm going to go all the way around. Okay, to kind of show you how to cut, the best way is to lay your hoop flat on the table like this and pull up your edge and then cut with your other hand so you can really control it. That's why I like to leave at least a 1/2 inch. That's probably about 1 inch there, so that's a little more, but I like to leave at least a 1/2 inch so I can get a good grasp on it and still cut nicely along the edge. Okay, here it is all trimmed around and back in the hoop and ready to sew the next edge on. Now, I didn't trim it quite as close down right here. I decided not to worry about it because I'm going to put my second applique fabric in there. It's going to cover it anyways. Actually, I guess I didn't have to really trim it, but I didn't want it to be bulky. But see here, the rest of it, let's see if you can, I can get close, leaves a little edge there that I can actually lift up, and it should satin stitch on that edge really nice. Okay, now to do this little corner here, which will be the center of the flower, I could do it the same way as I did the other one. Just cut a piece of fabric that's bigger than that spot. This is just a scrap I found. I can stick it down. In this case, I'm sure people are going to be cringing, but I am just going to lay it there and kind of hold it until my machine gets going on it. Okay, and here's what it looks like with the second piece on there. As you can see, it's overlapping the others. But when we trim around this one, like we did the other one, it'll just be a nice little corner piece there. And we'll be ready for our satin stitch. Okay, so now I've got fabric number 1 stitched down and trimmed around, fabric number 2 for the applique. Right here I'll stitch down and ready to go. And I do want to get rid of this little extra thread because it'll stick out from under the satin stitch. So now we're ready to do the finishing stitch. This is a really good applique pattern. It's putting an extra stitch down to hold the edges. It makes them really sturdy. And there goes the satin stitch. Okay, here's the outline of the petals done in the satin stitch. It didn't do along the edge here because this is part of the outside of the quilt square. If I was going to just use this as an applique on something, I would trim around this edge real close here. That's why it would be then laying on top of stabilizer. But this is actually going to be a quilt square, and she'll want this excess to get it done. So I'm going to go ahead and stitch out the border, and it'll be done. Okay, here's the finished applique square, and it looks pretty good. I caught all the edges. Right here, there's a few threads sticking out. I could have trimmed it a little closer there, but that's not going to hurt anything. And I'm just going to use my little sharp scissors just to trim a little bit, but it really looks fine. So now I just have to make like 19 more of these squares. All done.